All right. Pop culture conversations. Yes. Look at the camera. Yo, look at the camera on me. Look at the camera. This is episode 2. So, as episode 2, and it's episode 2 of Secret Invasions. So, let's start with the first impressions. Bone.
It wasn't bad. I mean, it wasn't. I tell you, it's really difficult to judge, to give an opinion of it when you're only 2 episodes in on something that you really don't know where they're going with it. But I would say that if it stands on its own, it's not bad.
Mm-hmm. Drake?
I really liked the flashback scene at the beginning and how they kind of it filled in some story part that was lacking from the Captain Marvel movie. It kind of gave you some background. I really liked it. I like this episode better than the first episode, and I'm trending toward it. There's some things that took place that I really liked, and I have a couple questions. But a first impression, I'm getting more vested in it as we go.
It was a little slow. Not much action in it. To me, it's kind of, it's like, it's not bad. I'm not super drastically into it. You know, I mean, I like the information. It's like, I'll watch it, and there's information and exposition and you're learning these things, but I don't really have a lot of emotional ties, and not a lot is at stake to me. I'm not really mesmerized. It isn't really massively getting my attention. It's enough because I'm into world building and I'm into story. So it's enough that I'll follow the storyline and I'll follow the world building and see, and I'm definitely going all the way to see where they go, unless the third one just drops the thing. Well, even if it does, I'll watch the whole thing. I watched all of Kenobi, and with hopes too. But overall, it's moving pretty. It's moving pretty slowly, and it's not really captivating a lot of attention to me.
On that, I would agree that it is moving slow, but there were things that took place with dialogue and between characters, and the information that you gathered about some things in the episode that I really liked, that got me wow, okay, this is on a way bigger scale than that first episode led you to believe.
Right. No, I definitely did appreciate that. With the revelation that, obviously spoilers, the revelation that there's a million Skrulls on Earth right now, and so they're, that's a pretty sizable army, and then seeing all those people and that kind of got me a little bit excited, because it kind of ties in a little bit towards the comics, where you had all these, so you had these world leaders, the Secretary General of NATO, all these world leaders, and then some of them they didn't really say who they were, but their exposition, that are Skrulls. So it kind of is okay, this could get interesting, but then they're keeping it to be this Nick Fury's war. And when you look at, it's only 2 episodes in, but when you look at 2 episodes, you're going, yeah, but what is he doing? What is he doing though? It's Nick Fury's war, and he's this is my war, and don't bring the Avengers in. But what are you doing, Nick? You're talking to a bunch of people a bunch of times. You keep talking.
It makes me wonder if I will just wonder if he's faking it. If he's faking his old age, if he's over exaggerating his old age, if it's part of his larger plan. I mean, I just would hope that that's where
it really does seem to be that.
Because why would he do all the stuff that he's doing?
Yeah, but if you watch it, right? Because this kind of goes back to pointing what you were saying in the last podcast when we were talking about episode 1. If you watch it, right, they keep setting it up, and but it's everyone else saying it, not Nick. But they keep setting it up. It's almost like gaslighting. They're trying to convince him, but they keep setting it up everyone keeps making statements. Garrick was talking to a guy, and he was Gaia, and he was he's just dust in the wind and all that. But at the same time, when he just disables this dude, you see that he's in that scene with Roddy, right? He's talking to Roddy, and I always screw that up. It's Roddy or Rhodey. I always screw up how to pronounce it. He's talking to Rhodey. He's talking about James Rhodes, and I say Roddy, Roddy Piper. He's talking about to Rhodey, and they have this really cool, interesting dialogue, and then the guy comes, and he just he incapacitates the dude with ease. So it's not. He shows that he's not as that old guy, and then he says, that was a cool moment where he goes, "Listen, I'm Nick Fury, man." This is kind of his point. He's trying to say, everyone's trying to say, Nick, you're too old, you're out of the game, and he's saying, don't you I'm Nick Fury. When I'm out of the game, I'm still in the game. It doesn't matter.
I thought that was a cool part. I've heard some people kind of dog that part, but I liked it. But
I think it's kind of.
I just don't understand why this person. They've been through so much together. What's his War Machine? Why is War Machine Dog and Nick Fury. Is War Machine a Skrull?
Yeah, but War Machine wasn't necessarily super tight. And then the thing, so that's another question. But the thing about that is really, and this is, I was watching some commentary on it, is really, and we don't, everything's kind of up in there, because if you take like Everett Ross, I think we can kind of, I'm thinking if you put together the first scene and the first episode with Black Panther, I think you put together that Everett Ross is him, because he got arrested. And in the end of Black Panther, like the general for the Dora Milaje breaks him out and takes him assumably to Wakanda. But then we jump to the Skrulls, and the Skrull opposing Everett Ross is working in for Shield, but he's being indicted for being a traitor to his government. So I would assume, like I'm going to assume that like the real Everett Ross is still in Black Panther. It kind of almost would seem that way. So we don't know where people and when people were replaced and how that's all going. Or he may have been like replaced in Black Panther, and then after he was in Black Panther and he's in one of the pods, because they're not saying that those people are dead. But the thing people were talking about, if Rhodey is, I said that right at that time, right? If he's a Skrull, is if he's a Skrull, that like there would be an upheaval to because that would kind of just kill the whole heartbreaking scene at the end of Endgame, which is one of the biggest movies in history, when Tony dies, and they have that whole heartbreaking scene where he sees Tony die. If they were to, if they're not saying that they would, because as I said, it's very gray as to where he was taken. But if they were to do that and kind of just retcon, well, it was a Skrull in that scene, a lot of fans would not really appreciate that.
I don't think that this goes all the way back to Endgame.
I don't know.
I don't. That was like, I think this is something that's transpired after Endgame, because that's even what the one Skrull in the train, when he's talking to Nick in the train, he's like, you were gone after the snap, you were gone. But then when you came back, you went straight to your space station, and there was no talking to you. He's like, what was I supposed to do with my people? Let them die or bring them here? So, and if you look at it, the issue is because Gavik is a little boy, and they make a point to show you him as a little boy when
in 1995,
when Nick makes the promise, and now here it is years later, and the promise is unfulfilled, and that kid's like, well, I'm going to take it. Not
okay, but see, we haven't established the timeline.
Well, I get that. I totally get that. But
we haven't established a timeline, or the timeline hasn't been established.
The timeline.
The show. That was because I was wondering, maybe we should go back and look and see what did Nick Fury look like when he was on the porch after the funeral, and they're all standing there looking out at the lake. Mm-hmm. When they're zooming in
on a side tangent. The most annoying thing is is the 3 scars on his eye now. So they added, after they made that stupid thing in Captain Marvel that he lost his eye to that freaking cat creature thing, and now he has those 3 scars in Secret Invasion that he didn't have in any of the other movies. That's the most retarded thing.
So we were
consider that you're an actor in your 70s, and how long does it take to film something like this? 6 months doing camera work. And you got this thing digging into your face. I mean, I can understand.
So you and I were talking a little while ago about the WTF moment in the episode.
Hold on. I don't want to go there just yet, because I want to finish because what we were talking about here, because I don't think that the timeline has been established whether that's true. So that's kind of assumption, because at the same time, would you consider Rhodey says 15 years ago, we knew about these green aliens. So he knew about it 15 years ago, and they were concerned 15 years ago about an invasion. So I don't think that necessarily establishes that this wasn't going on.
Oh, I agree.
And so, but I'm saying,
I will tell you right now, based on how the conversation went with Rhodey, I fully do not think that. I think he's a Skrull.
So that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. A lot of people.
That was, in my opinion.
But see, you could lead someone down a false path.
So
because he might
subvert expectations.
He might just be a jerk now. He's working in politics, and it seems to me that it's because you could play it 2 ways, right? He rejects, rebuffs his request to help, and that makes him a Skrull, or he's just being a jerk. Right. So it's like,
and then the other thing we have to understand and consider is it's not Skrulls versus humans either. There's Skrull factions. There's a different thing here, because another thing people were talking about was like Sonya Fallsworth. Like they're saying, well, we don't think she's a Skrull based on the whole interrogation thing. We don't think she's a Skrull, at least working for Garrick. Or is it Garrick or Gavik? I always get that up. But Gavik. It's Gavik. It's Gavik.
Gavik.
It's Garrett for Gavik. but she could be a Skrull that just doesn't agree with him, but she's on her own business. So it's like there's this whole setup where it's like they are adding that it's not this whole combined species versus species force. But anyways, I'm just saying people were saying that it was kind of there in the ether, and it was kind of said that okay, you know, and it could still be right because Rhodey could be a Skrull and they do it in a different way, but it was kind of said that really because we haven't established that timeline. The timeline that this whole thing started, and so that is one of the things people were saying is if Rhodey's a Skrull, that would depending on how they do it, that could retcon, and I don't that scene, and I don't think a lot of fans would appreciate that, and so I don't think that they would have done it that way.
I want to ask a question real quick. I would like to know what the Russian guy is doing with the Skrull in the chair. Is he like trying to roll his head into like a piece of flat piece of dough or something? It's like he's holding it up against his head. Like what is he doing? I was like, okay. Has anyone the writers, have they ever watched a film before? Have they ever seen how you do bad things to people? It's like I can't get anything out of him. I got a pencil on his face. I can't get anything.
And you know, this
like trying to roll it out of him with this roller.
It's like that's always a thing too. It's like it's always there's the beat up scene and then there's the surgical torture, and it's like wouldn't you already just jump to the surgical torture and assume that beating this guy isn't going to get anywhere? But all right. So let's jump to the WTF moments, W2F moments.
So I got one more thing to talk about with the Rhodey conversation that's set up. So if you've watched the progression of the Nick Fury character through at least the Avengers movies, and where he was at in the position he was at, and that he's still technically in charge of the space station and what's going on up there.
Is he?
Because he's the one that the Fantastic Four is supposed to be in. That space station. Has anyone seen this space station? I've never seen it.
Talking about Saber.
Saber.
Saber's
no,
whole thing.
Been in a bunch of.
They did show the inside, didn't they?
Yeah, it was in the. It's been in a couple of the movies.
But he didn't.
Because there for a while, the Skrulls were living on that station.
Oh, that's the one that they showed them inside of whenever.
Yeah.
Was that in Miracle Woman? What's the name of that movie?
Captain Marvel.
Captain
Marvel.
Captain Marvel. Captain Wonderland.
So my point though is, you had a person that was running Shield, and a key piece in like this whole global network, and basically engineered the Avengers team himself, like pretty much put them together with the green light of NATO and the U.S. government. So, and handpicked James Rhodes to be War Machine and put him with Tony Stark to kind of reel Tony in during those Iron Man movies. And now, that's like, during that conversation, is so beyond the normal for James Rhodes and the way it went. Right. So, even though he's like, well, I'm in politics and this is what, but this is me, I came on my own to fire you.
I volunteered.
I volunteered.
This doesn't seem like two people that have been through a lot together.
And that's where, if it's a false flag and they're trying to just send you down a road where they want you to think Rhodey is a bad guy, they succeeded. But on the other side of it, I kept holding out hope that Rhodey would be there to be an assistant in the armor sometime later in the series, and maybe he does. Maybe he cut because the one is it the president? Is it Joe Piscopo? Is that the guy? Is that an older Joe Piscopo that's playing the president in this series?
Is it really Joe Piscopo?
I think it is. It looks like him.
I don't know who Joe Piscopo is.
He was a comedian back in the 80s.
I don't know.
He was just like a huge buff comedian.
Let's laptop it. Laptop it.
I'm gonna look it up real quick because.
Laptop.
All right. Why did you look it up?
Just back to an earlier point is that the way he reacted seems out of place to me, regardless of if he's a Skrull or not. If he's not a Skrull, the way he treated Nick Fury is ridiculous. Oh, okay. Because it's Nick Fury. I mean, you could argue that Nick Fury is the whole reason that the Avengers worked.
Right. Because
he's the one who saw the stuff coming.
It's Dermot Mulroney. But the facial expressions he had remind me of old Joe Piscopo. So
Dermot Mulroney, he was the guy I believe that played you see the size of them chickens from Young Guns?
Probably was.
I think that's him. Young Guns.
That's all lost on me.
But he's a Skrull, right? That was the impression I got.
Yeah,
But he wasn't-
You have to assume that the president.
He wasn't in the meeting of the council. But
No,
they haven't
but-
established that he's a Skrull. So these are all suspicions. They haven't. How did they establish that he was a Skrull? When did they establish he was a Skrull?
I was by the way the episode ran and the way the conversations went with him and other people, I just assumed he was a Skrull. Like
From what?
it became
From him saying the president has no need to
It
go in
seems
front of the
to be-
UN.
no, not from the Rhodes conversation, from the activities of the president and the conversations he was having with some of the people that were sitting around that table later.
If you were a clever writer who's been well
You don't want
established,
in the first episode?
No, in this episode,
The president wasn't at that table.
I know that.
The president was hardly in this episode. He wasn't even. He wasn't in this episode. James Rhodes was in the. He was only in the first episode, and Rhodes was talking to him, if I believe.
So
if I
was
remember correctly.
Mulroney in the scene around the table?
No.
Where they had the war council with Gavik?
No,
Are you
that
sh-
was yes. Yes, I'm sure it was the UK
That's
Prime
Mulroney.
Minister. No, it was it was the UK Prime Minister. It was the Secretary General of NATO. It was a Fox News kind of FXN News pundit. It was a Japanese guy who they basically they didn't say what he was. People assume he's not Japanese. Sorry, an Asian American. They assume he's
don't
either
think
like a
you can say
tech guy or like a star. And it was the lady. The president was not in that council.
yeah, I don't
Like,
think he was.
he was not in that council. That would have been a big shock. I've been
Right,
surprised.
but I would just imagine, right? You're a fancy writer who's
You going
well
back to the
established in the industry.
That's
You've
towards
been
the beginning.
writing for such big hits as
far from
Indiana
the-
Jones and Star Wars: Force Awakens, and now you're writing for Marvel.
before
And
that.
you would think, of course, the president's going to be a Skrull because that's what exciting writers do.
Right. And it could be. He could be. But I don't think it's kind of surrounding all that. Like I think
No, but
I don't think it's getting to the president. I mean, I guess the president could come in if Rhodey's not a Skrull. He could come in a different scene and like shock him.
actually, he's more like an O'Reilly character.
He's
than
not in this.
Tucker.
He's not in this. Who's the white guy?
Then who's that?
That's the
That's the
FXN
Tucker Carlson
News.
Bill O'Reilly guy.
That's the FXN
Fox
News
News
guy,
guy.
the pundit, something Monroe, I think, or something like that. He's a news pundit. He's in a scene a couple minutes before, like doing like a piece, an FXN.
Yeah, that
piece.
g's been in a ton of stuff. I don't remember.
Anyways, we should probably be showing a picture of this on scene.
That's who I thought was Joe Piscopo.
Yeah, that's not the president.
He does kind of look like Joe Piscopo.
But
I think
It's Christopher McDonald. He's playing Chris Stearns. But he looks.
Was he ever on Saturday Night Live and he played Joe Piscopo in something?
I bet he did, because it's crazy.
That's
Joe
interesting.
Piscopo's got to be super old if he's still alive still.
right, all right. So the WTF moments. Let's jump into these WTF moments because we could listen. I think on the other side, this is almost kind of going back. The fact that there's all this questions of who's the Skrull is kind of what's driving the show in a way. It kind of does. There is something to the writing that we are kind of asking these questions of who's the Skrull. Is so and so Skrull? Is so and so Skrull?
Right.
So there is some sort of interest there. So obviously it's not just dead. There are parts you can dislike. I don't have this massive allegiance to Nick Fury. It's like you seem to be. I don't have this.
No,
massive,
I don't have allegiance to him. I mean, I just think that if you boil the story down, right, all this stuff started as far as after the Iron Man series when Nick Fury is first introduced into the MCU. He's the one that sews all this stuff together.
Right.
And so I didn't even realize that this guy was Sergeant Fury, and I didn't know any of that. So I don't owe any allegiance to Nick Fury. I just think that seriously, the guy was very important the whole series.
Right. I don't know. He's kind of fell out of the spotlight for a lot of the more recent movies. From after Captain America, Winter Soldier, he kind of fell from the spotlight. Well, he was in back in Age of Ultron, but after that, he was like in a couple scenes here or there, but he didn't really. Anyways, all right, Drake, what was your questions? I'm curious because I'm curious what your WTF moment is.
Well, I want mine was the whole Rhodey
So
conversation.
that was the thing you wanted to ask me about.
That was what you thought about that, because the way that whole scene went, where like Bones said, where he basically is like, "Oh no, I volunteered to fire you. I came to fire you," and I'm like,
Yeah, but at the same time, he did just make
It's
he
like,
did
not
just
only
make
do
an
I not like
international
you,
incident.
I really don't like you.
But at the same time, like they are kind of blaming him for this international incident, even though they're covering it up.
Which makes no sense.
And the fact of the matter is, if the leader of, if the spy of spies, is going to tell you that, hey,
Right.
this is what's going on, you should trust me. I'm going to get you evidence. You would think he might give you a little rope just to see if you could gather the information instead of boom. It almost seems like it's too counterproductive. And
Oh, it does. But just imagine you started something, right? You saw something came about. You saw the potential of it. You saw that it could be used in a time of great danger. That danger comes, right? You die. And then the people that you pulled together that no one thought could work together fixed it. And now you're alive again, so you're going to go and feel sorry for yourself? You know what I mean? I think you would have a pretty decent sense of satisfaction. It's a lot of trauma that everyone went through. But man, you did it, dude.
But I don't know. If you really take in consideration, though, the whole storyline of, like, Nick Fury doesn't trust people. He didn't trust anyone. That's the kind of we learned in the Winter Soldier. So you take the whole storyline of he had this whole shield set up and he had all that. And even then, because honestly, it was like both. And this is always the way it is with Nick Fury's thing, his relationship with the Avengers. It was like he pulled them together, but he didn't want them, like, he wanted them to be a shield thing. They went off and meant their own thing. And so it's like, well, he's so thankful. Then he's like, he works with them and he still, he did this thing, but at the same time, like, he looks at himself, and this does make sense with the storyline of he looks at himself. He's supposed to know what's coming next. He's supposed to know what's coming around the corner, and then he's here, and this could be just subterfuge that they're using that to make it look this way. So then he comes back and it's this big cool moment, which will still be really rewarding if he just makes this really like badass moment at the end where he like proves that he's still the best of the best. But they set and that's the stage they're setting where he's like he's supposed to know what comes next. Suddenly he's like he can't do anything and he just disappears. It's kind of traumatic, and you're like, now I need to look at, because it's extraterrestrial. You're like, now I need to look towards the stars because that's where the threats are coming from. Let me go up there and figure out what's coming next. And that's the way they're kind of setting it up. And it's kind of traumatic.
Did you write all this?
No,
because that makes sense. You should write because you're a great writer.
I don't know.
So I will say
I think that's what they're doing though.
The way the James Rhodey scene is what it is, and it isolates him into having no friends. And when he leaves and he's sitting there and he goes back to that, I guess it's a Shield safe house that's been abandoned, and he gets the car, and you gather the information. He's got equipment, and he goes for a ride, and that sets up the big WTF moment of the entire episode.
I have a question before we get into that.
My thing right now is, I think they've set it up where, as of the next episode, he goes into Agent Fury mode and not Director Fury. He goes into Howling Commando Nick Fury, and nobody gonna help me. I ain't never need nobody's help. Anyway.
That would be really cool.
I'm gonna get this done.
That would be cool.
It'd be turned into that guy.
If he does that, they would turn
what would be really cool also, what actually would be even cooler is if he does like he does in the Secret Invasion story, and he puts together a team of these nobodies. And like he did in the Secret Invasion story, where he got like, you're the son of so and so, and you have this thing in your blood, you know how to control it, and I'll teach you how to control it, and now you know how to use magic.
How are they going to pull that off in 4 episodes?
No, but they could do it. But they could do it. They show. But listen, they did that, Bone, in one book of the story of the what is it, tie-ins. One comic book of the tie-ins. He went and pulled all these people together, and it was just a quick exposition of, well, this is Daisy. Is it Daisy? Yeah, it's Daisy Johnson. This guy, he's like, I have this thing. And then they're like, oh yeah, you're the son of the actual original Dr. Druid, and you have this sort of magic in your blood, and you just want to control it, and we can teach you how to do that. Oh, you're all that. So he pulled this little group together. So that's doable.
So the son of Eeyore comes and saves.
Yeah, the son of Eeyore. That's doable. Now, obviously, it would be probably a little more known things. Now, obviously, they've eliminated
Snuffleupagus.
They have eliminated, and the most annoying thing I think out of all this too would be like that. And this is almost a sidetrack too. It is really annoying how they just have ignored Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Like, that's not even a part of the universe. Because I was into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Coulson?
And while Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Well, he's dead. But while Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was going, right, Like Agents of Shield would set up. Like Agents of Shield set up the Winter Soldier, well, Age of Ultron. Like there was a whole, and there's a couple episodes right before it came out where they go and get those helicarriers for Nick Fury, that he shows up with an Age of Ultron to save the people when they shoot the piece of Sokovia into the sky. But nobody from other than one or two with Murray Hill and Nick Fury at the ending of one of the last episodes of the first season during the Captain America Winter Soldier kind of events was going on. Nobody from the movies ever showed up, and there was no movies ever pointed to it. And so these guys are out here doing all these crazy things, and you leave them, they're still doing these stuff, and you would think, man, and that's why it is kind of annoying that the actress who played Quake in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. confirmed that she's not in it, because like why wouldn't Nick Fury be going and finding these people that he worked like Coulson, because Coulson's dead, but I believe the LMD might still be alive.
That's what Nick Fury does. But I just want to say one thing, just in case you're wondering why he's called Doc. You would think it's because he's a doctor. Well, he is a doctor. He earned doctor status. But it's the memory on this guy. We could call him Memory Man, because he's actually documentary dude over here. Because like the memory on this one is impressive.
Documentary Z.
Documentary
dude.
Was
still alive. I'm like, where is the guy?
Documentary dude. That's pretty. That's pretty. You get a doctor status just for that, Doctor Bone. So. My question is, do you guys believe, and then after this, I think we can move on. Do you guys think that Nick, that the Skrull is, do you think Nick Fury knows that his wife is a Skrull, or that she's a Skrull pretending to be his wife and he doesn't know it? Because, well, what do you think?
So
he would know if it wasn't.
So
you would know.
Okay.
Unless you're just married to a macaroni.
So something you and I talked about earlier was the fact that at the beginning of this episode, the woman's voice that introduces Gavik.
Well, hold on before you get there. Hold on. Because that's where I was going to go. That's not necessarily true though, because their ability is to take all the minds and essence of that person. So they know everything that person knows about you and about that and everything that's in their brain. This is the kind of the entire idea behind the Skrulls.
Here's one thing that they don't. That they've never, and I doubt they've ever mentioned this. And maybe the writers don't think of it, but muscle memory. Muscle memory is a thing. That's the way people lean, the way they move, the way they kiss, the way they look, the way their eyes rest. When
right.
Like we were talking about that about the cold plunge and how cool that is, right? The feeling you get. It's like the I don't know. You just can't mimic. There's no way you can mimic everything. I don't think.
But I don't. But I don't know, because the way they've written these creatures, these characters, is giving them this ultimate ability. And the only thing that's different now is like their soul, basically. But like the way, not necessarily in the movie. I mean, in the film, in the series, but definitely from the comics. The way they've written them, and the muscle memory is kind of a questionable thing in general. But overall, the way they've written them, it's like, it's there's a premise where you're saying, because Nick Fury did notice in one of the tie-ins that the lady wasn't the person that he thought she was, and he did notice, but well, he didn't notice. He knew something was off, and then he followed her and realized it. So that could be true, but not to worry, because that's what I think is. I think it's pretty obvious, and I think the way they set it up like that, so it's kind of a cliffhanger, but really once they come in the next episode, it's going to be pretty obvious he knows who she is.
I think that because of how long he spent on Saber and interacting with these things for 15 years and all the other thing going on, I think he just ended up marrying a Skrull.
It's possible, because
I think he
didn't seem like. So if it was a Skrull, right, they had been on Earth and he's up.
But he was married. But it was before this, because in the Winter Soldier, he says he told Captain America his wife kicked him out. He was married in the Winter Soldier. So. And we're assuming it's the same person, like because she could, if it is the same person, he's known her since 1995 when they came down in the Captain Marvel whole thing. So he's known her for that long.
Was this a different woman?
It seems like to be the same person. It really sounds like the same voice. It looks very similar. You only get a shot.
But you're talking about the Skrull that.
Yeah, but that's the question. We don't know.
But so you don't know if maybe he was married and his wife left him, and then he ended up with this Skrull later.
That's possible.
If he does know, that's really weird.
It's possible, but I don't really think that they're writing it up setting up that way. I think that could have just been a more throwaway line. I think it could have been a throwaway line in that movie.
I think this whole thing right now is just to like get people kind of like, whoa.
What's going
Like
on?
doing what we're
Because they
doing
didn't
right
do it
now.
that way. They did it. They set it up that way, where you see,
Yeah,
she's
but
this girl,
why would- if
and
she-
then as
if-
soon as he walks in, she's not, and it's like,
Right.
is she?
Because
Does
if she
he
was,
know?
why does she bother changing for? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but at the
That's
same
the
time,
really
he did
weird
tell
part.
them they need to.
It's
they need
like,
to put on
why'd
human
you
face.
change? If he knows, it shouldn't
Well,
be an
probably because he's
issue.
not attracted to Skrull.
But he does.
Also, he does say, "Put on a human face. Y'all need to change your face and keep it permanently.
yes, that
in
was
the-
going to
from
be
the
like,
beginning of the
keep
episode.
that face.
You need to change your anyway.
That's going to be an interesting topic in the next episode.
It's gonna be an interesting to see. It's gonna be interesting to see very soon now.
Tune in next week, where
Yeah.
we'll find out.
Well,
Did Nick Fury
hopefully,
know?
maybe we won't. Maybe they will not answer it.
We will find out.
And
I promise.
they have to,
We're
because
gonna
if they
find
come back in, there's no way they could have conversation without you kind of like picking up whether she knows or whether he knows or not. But all right, so the other thing we're to talk about:
out. What's the other thing we're going to talk about?
Spider-Man across the Spiderverse. Across the Spiderverse. We were supposed to talk about that. First impressions. I always like to start with first impressions because I want to see what each of you think unadulterated thoughts
Oh,
are.
you get to pick. You get to go last. Okay. So he's like he's going to absorb all.
I get to go
He's
last.
gonna
Well,
absorb
I'm the
our
host.
first
I wouldn't
impression.
listen.
No,
I
agree
wouldn't
with
want to
your
poison
first-
your
I agree with
impressionable
first
brains. I wouldn't want to poison your impressionable brains with my opinions, my strong opinions.
I don't know if I can remember. My
I know that I'm a master. I'm a master at convincing and at arguing my
you
opinions.
should be able to, because you've been frustrated about people that have jumped to conclusions
No, I
without
have.
understanding some of the.
Well, here's the.
you
here's
go
the deal.
first.
Just going back to the first film, right? It was on Netflix for a long time. I avoided it because I didn't understand it. I didn't know. Hadn't followed the comic books for years, and I was really impressed with it when I saw it. I was like, "This is the first one. Like, this is really cool." I mean, when you're expecting something to be garbage, and it's phenomenal. I mean, it's like your expectations are totally blown away. And so the second one, then having caught up with a lot of the, got a little bit of an education from you guys about the current series that are going on. I really liked the second one. I mean, there were a couple moments that maybe some of the subliminal stuff that they were trying to throw that could have been left out, but I thought it was really great. And the cliffhanger, that didn't bother me at all. I think what I was talking to you about is that a lot of people, they're like I was, and they know nothing about what the hell a Spider Rex is, Spider Rex. They have no idea what this guy is. And so they're just like, what's this? All these 500 Spider-Men and women and animals
Things.
running around. It's like, they don't understand it, But I thought it was great. What did you think?
I loved it. Okay, so there was something that you and I talked about early on about it after I watched it. The thing that annoyed me at first was how they handled Miguel, Spider-Man 2099.
Yeah, he seems kind of psychotic.
But you made a point to mention to me that would probably not be the Spider-Man 2099 from the regular universe, from the movie universe.
What would that be?
Or
Universe 1? Is that what they would call it?
whatever they would call it. The Prime universe, whatever you want to call it. He would not be the one that was in that universe and interacting with the Spider-Man, with Peter Parker and Ben Reilly in that universe. And the Ben Reilly in the movie would probably not be the same Ben Reilly either. They would be from different multiverses, because this is all across the multiverse. So none of it's easy to say that none of the characters in the Spider-Verse movie are actually from the primary universe. Not one of them. Which for me makes more sense the way the story is progressing, because that's the one universe that they haven't touched. They haven't touched Toby, they haven't touched Garfield, and they haven't touched Holland. Those three Spider-Mans, they've stayed out of those three territories. So the characters and the interactions between the regular timeline from the Marvel comics isn't really being done there, but they're using these characters from other multiverse locations, which gives them the freedom to make Spidey 2099 borderline psychotic and a couple other characters kind of out there. But I really liked it. I enjoyed how it went. And it's really, one of the things I really like about it is the fact that Miles Morales, when I first heard about him, I was like, I don't care about this character. And it was in the comics aspect. But after I saw the first Spider-Verse movie and now this movie, I really like how he's just not a carbon copy of all the other Spider-Mans. He doesn't have the same powers. He can turn invisible. He has some little different tweaks on his powers, and it makes him unique and different while still being Spider-Man. And the fact that he can overcome all of this and still get away and be able to try and get to where he needs to be, I really enjoyed it. And I like the fact that the way the end was perfect. It was like a comic book ending to where you have to wait for the next
Right.
issue, but these two sides that are forming, that are gonna fight over him, and he doesn't even know they're forming. That's like just I really enjoyed where
I
it went.
enjoyed it too. He's like the Anakin Skywalker of Spider people.
Really,
What did you think?
really, Anakin Skywalker of Spider People.
Because Anakin Skywalker was the most
Well, see,
powerful.
I enjoy. It's
I
like
don't
for
know
me,
if
it's
he's
more of
the
a.
most powerful, but he's pretty powerful.
Look, I don't. Everyone else is wrong. No, I'm just joking.
I don't know. There's some pretty powerful Spider-Man out there. There's some pretty powerful.
Well, look, he
Spider-Man.
got away from I don't know what 500 of them.
Yeah, but there's ones like with the power of like basically
There was
Superman
just
out
the one
there.
that had the power
What's the
of
one with
ice
that like
stones.
the super like universe power, Mr. Universe power, or whatever it was?
Well, that was the regular Spider-Man. He got the
No, there's a one that's like an alternate universe Spider-Man who has like not it's something where he has
Hold
like
on. Did you say that there's an alternate universe?
a different
in the
not-
multiverse?
yes alternate
they're all
universe
alternate
Spider-Man
universes.
that has like because he wears it's in the storyline
It's got that crazy little star thing on his
yeah because
chest.
it's in the storyline when they're hunting him, the spiders. There's the, like Moreland and all
it's
those
in
guys.
the original Spider-Verse storyline in Amazing
Right.
Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some crazy ones in there.
There's some crazy
like-
ones. But
yeah.
anyways, I'm not as like giant, massive Spider-Man fans like you, so I just enjoyed it as like overall movie. I thought it was pretty great. I love the work they're doing with the animation. It's really cool. How they're like matching the
stuff.
animation to the characters, and you see like the cool kind of like vibe they're doing there. I really enjoy all that. And I think it's just a fun. To me, it's just a fun movie.
For me,
It's just really fun, and then it has this sort of great ending where you're like, all right. But I hope the 3 measures up because usually they start to degrade. It doesn't seem to be, but usually they'll start to degrade as you start to get sequels and et cetera, territory. But I hope
really-
3 holds up.
I really like the pieces they picked to team up with Spider-Gwen, that is kind of working on his side. Like the Peter Parker Spider-Man
Right.
with sweatpants from
Peter
the,
B. Parker.
Yeah,
Sweatpants
Peter
Spider-Man.
D. Parker or
B. Peter B. Parker.
And that
know,
crew that they've got. I
Spider-Man
really,
Noir.
the
Spider-Man Noir is cool.
What's going on with the pregnant lady? I don't really get that.
Jessica Drew. It is weird.
Okay, so
But her character, the main universe character, like was pregnant for a while in the comics as well too.
do you know who Jessica Drew is?
Let's just assume that Bone doesn't know who Jessica Drew is. Bone knows, but let's just assume.
Let's just
he
explain. Let's
doesn't
explain
think
for the people out there who don't.
Okay, so Jessica Drew is the original 1970s Spider-Woman. And she was the character, I don't want to backtrack too far, but in the Secret Invasion, she's the character that ends up being the
Oh,
Scorpion
yeah, that's
Queen.
right. No, I did know
But
that. Just-
she was the original Spider-Woman, and this Jessica Drew is just an alternate multiverse version of Jessica Drew because she's considerably different from the original Jessica Drew. But she's interesting character.
She's got much more weirdly different powers too.
different
She can
powers
like
and-
kind of fly sometimes. She has like stings. I don't think she ever uses. I don't necessarily understand all her powers.
Yeah, I don't
I never
know.
really sat down and read her backstory because she wasn't massively.
She has a sister named Nancy. I don't know if you know Nancy Drew.
Oh yeah, there's a and then the
Do you know
there's
who
a-
Nancy Drew
I
is?
do know
There's
Nancy Drew. is.
the second Spider Woman that wore the black and white with the blonde hair. She had these like psionic stings. That she was more of a psychic character, and so they've all been a little different.
So speaking of Spider-Man,
Let's do it.
you did your homework, young people. What are your top 5 Spider-Man villains? I think
get to go
I'll
first.
go first this time because I'm not as in depth as you. My Spider-Man villains are really
going
going to be based-
backwards,
We're
right?
going backwards.
All right.
Well, number 1 is the best. I'm not as deep into it as you guys, so this is my top 5. I'm going 5. I'm going Kraven the Hunter, because Kraven is just pretty cool. He's really cool. He's got some cool stories with him. Like I don't remember the name, but the one where Spider-Man gets buried and he breaks out.
Called
Was it called?
Craven's Last Hunt.
Craven's Last Hunt. That's what it is. That's pretty great.
Yeah, it is.
Number 4, this might actually upset some people out there. I'm going to go with the Green Goblin. I just never really got it. I understand he's got to be in there because of the legacy of some of the big stories. And I understand he's kind of like, you're going to hate this comparison because you're DC. He's kind of like the Joker to Spider-Man's Batman.
I would-
But
I would agree with that.
but I just never really, I'm not a huge fan of that character. I don't really find him super crazily interesting. I never really read a lot of massively interesting stories about him. He's there because he's earned it over just the history. But that for me, that's why he's at 4. 3, it's got to be Venom. Venom is pretty awesome. It's got to be Venom. And the only reason Venom is at 3 is because 2 is Carnage. Because Carnage is crazy. And because of the stuff they did recently and the stuff they've done with Absolute Carnage, where Carnage has just like lost his mind and like was just going insane all over the entire universe. He was this massive, like it was this worldwide event. They've done some really cool stuff with Carnage. This is almost all very superficial. Y'all are looking at me like very intensely right now. Listen, don't tell me. Number 1, it's going to be Dr. Octopus. And you know why? You know why, Drake? You know why? Because of Superior Spider-Man. Dr. Octopus basically kills Peter Parker. He swaps. I don't know if you read Superior Spider-Man. He swaps brains. Dr. Octopus is dying. Octavius is dying, and he swaps minds with Peter Parker. He tricks him and swaps his mind, and goes in his body. Peter Parker goes into his dead body and basically dies.
So,
and then they fix it.
He doesn't die,
but he assumes he's dead.
He starts to die and then ends up sharing the body with
Right,
Otto,
right.
but Otto
doesn't realize that for a while and assumes he's dead. And then Otto Octavius goes and lives as Peter Parker
for an entire series.
as Spider-Man.
And
He is the most awesome. He's just like this standoffish jerk. He actually starts to become a hero, but he's a standoffish jerk Spider-Man who's just like, I'm better than you. And Spider-Man, this is the best part. He makes Spider-Man's life better. He makes him a millionaire. He takes this loser Peter Parker who like doesn't have barely making ends meet, and he builds Parker Industries. And when Peter Parker comes back, he is pissed because Doc Ock has lived a better life and better Spider-Man than he did. And he's like, "What the hell?"
So,
and that is one of the best Spider-Man stories of all
I will tell
time.
you that is basically the Amazing Spider-Man run ended with Doc Ock doing that. Like around 6, the regular title ended. The second volume 2, which became volume 1 again, ended, and then they restarted volume 3 up after that. But it ran as Superior Spider-Man with no Amazing Spider-Man for a minute while all this was going on. It was pretty interesting. And I sat here while you were telling your top 5, and I'm like sitting here waiting to see who your 1 is going to be. And when you pull the Superior Spider-Man in, I'm like, all right, because Doc Ock, that's legit.
That redeemed.
The thing
because you were hating on me.
No,
you were looking at me.
No,
you were looking at me.
No, I'm not hating on you because you're younger and you have a different take, and a lot there's.
Listen, you're young and dumb.
No.
So you haven't read Spider-Man.
I did not. No,
I know you did. I did.
I'm not saying
talk towards
that.
your mic. Calm down. Talk towards your mic.
I'm not saying that you're young or dumb. I'm saying that because you've read newer things, that Doc Ock story of the last 10 years is one of the most epic Spider-Man stories they've told in a hot minute.
It really is.
So it really is amazing.
It is.
No pun
It's
intended.
superior. Really. It's superior.
It is superior. No joke. So I'd like to go last on this little.
All right, Bone.
Oh, you're gonna go last.
I'd like to go last on this,
All right,
if you're okay with that.
I just want to full disclosure, fully unprepared for this. So I did come up with a list while you were doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize we're gonna go from 5 to 1. I was
Yeah.
going to go one down.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to say my number 5, Flash Thompson, right? Because when we were growing up in high school, and this is why one of the appeals of Spider-Man is the bullies, right? So for whatever reason, I don't know if it was movies, it was pop culture. Like everyone was terrified to go to school. The bullies would stuff you in a locker, and that's how you expected to live life. And in some places, people did experience that stuff. People, holding people's heads underwater. So I'm going to say Flash Thompson, number 5. Number 4.
But isn't he more of a Peter Parker villain than a Spider-Man villain?
Look, man, Peter Parker and Spider-Man, the same guy.
He is?
Oh, you didn't know? Look, I'm sorry.
You should have said
that was a
spoilers,
spoiler
man.
alert. Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Number 4, Mysterio. I just think Mysterio is cool because he's got that hallucinogenic power, and he's got this cool cape, and there's a big dome over his head. And he just kind of flows in, and he's got this smoke everywhere he goes. Very cool.
He is pretty cool.
Number 3, J. Jonah Jameson. The guy has elevated himself to such a cultural level. If you watch a lot of these people who do reviews of movies, they have him like, this guy was a jerk. He just thought Spider-Man was a total loser and the anti-whatever. It's like J. Jonah Jameson should be number 1, even though he doesn't have a cool outfit and he doesn't make for a cool cover. But the guy was seriously a nemesis for Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. No love. So number 3.
Number 2.
Number 2. Wait, let's do a double number 3. Number 2, I'm going to say Carnage. Carnage. So I got out of comic books. I didn't really read them as a kid. No one bought them for me. I wasn't one of these smart kids who had a paper route. So I didn't buy them myself. So I just got them in the cartoons and the toys and stuff like that. So in the 90s, I moved away from where I didn't really know anyone. So I started buying comic books just to entertain myself. And when I was like, this is not the Spider-Man villain that I remember. And Carnage is amazing. And then, which leads me to number one, which is Venom. And the reason Carnage is number two is because we wouldn't have Carnage if we didn't have Venom. And Venom, to me, I almost like Venom more than Spider-Man. Just because of the black outfit. When I saw that Web of Spider-Man #1 with the black outfit, I was like, that is the coolest stuff I've ever seen. So Venom, because he's crazy, he sometimes he laments what he does, but other times he just revels in it. And so I kind of empathize with that. He's kind of like could you imagine like a Venom Hulk? I'm sure somebody's done that.
They have.
That would be like almost the coolest thing. So I would have to say number one.
But it's like, is J. Jonah Jameson and Flash Thompson really count as villains? Drake, weigh in here, Drake.
Well, let me ask you a question. Have you ever been bullied?
Yeah, but they're not superpowered. I don't really know if they.
So first, superpowered.
But it's villains. Like generally, when you say they're villains, like they're Peter Parker's sort of like they're foils to Peter Parker. They're foils to Peter Parker. Villain. Like they're foils to Peter Parker. But I don't know if they really fall in the villains category, man.
So I will say that J. Jonah Jameson hires this scientist.
Yeah, he does.
Silvermane, who creates these spider slayers and keeps sending them forever and ever and ever after him. It's kind of like him and Silvermane, and just become this duo that's constantly trying to kill Spider-Man. Like he's like obsessed. So I'll give Jonah. The thing with Thompson, I would almost say that Thompson's one of those early on, he's a bully and a pain in the ass, and but later on, him and Pete become really close friends. But there is a time in the series where he is believed to be another villain that's coming after Spider-Man. So there are multiple times in the run that Flash Thompson is, the last time is basically he's framed to be the villain, this particular villain, and it ends up not being him. So
in Romeo and Juliet, when Mercutio is dying, he says, "Villain am I not?" Right? A villain, according to dictionary.com, in a film, novel, or play, a character whose evil actions or motives are important to the plot.
I just don't see. Well, I guess it's not fair for me to criticize your list. I just don't see how you can cut out all these other like crazy Batman villains for Flash Thompson.
So Doc, I thought you were stealing my top 5 in the same order when you started with Kraven the Hunter, because Kraven the Hunter and that one story you mentioned, it's just epic. I bought those. We'll talk about that another time. But Kraven the Hunter is number 5, and number 4 for me is Doc Ock, for the exact reason. Not just that, but there are so many other aspects, like when he tried to marry Aunt May and all these different things he's done over the years. So Kraven would be number 5. Doc Ock would be number 4. Number three is difficult. And it is. But it for me, and what influenced me as a kid reading the book, for me, 3 is Venom. Venom is 3 for me. Number 2 is the Hobgoblin. The Hobgoblin was the villain that was in the book when I first really started reading the book on a monthly basis. And that's when Flash Thompson gets set up as the Hobgoblin. Ends up being Ned Leeds, who ends up getting murdered in another series and all this stuff. But anyway, and my number 1 is the Green Goblin. And it's just between the drug issues and the stuff in the 70s and all the things that went on, and the clone saga, and the fact that he took their baby, and all the different things that have transpired over the entirety of the series. Norman Osborn is the ultimate villain to Peter Parker, because not only does Norman know he's Peter Parker, but he also knows everything about him, and even knows that his daughter is alive and took her while making them believe the baby was born stillborn. So he is the ultimate villain in this, and to a almost like he is psychotic onto a over the top level. And it kind of trickles over into Harry Osborn, his son, and keeps going. And then when he becomes the leader of the Dark Avengers as Iron Patriot and takes over S.H.I.E.L.D. at one point, it's just like...
See, I did forget about all that.
All this stuff, the hits just keep coming with Norman, and he it keeps flashing it all right in Pete's face. And it's just, for me, he's the number one villain.
Man, all right, that was interesting. A little surprising. I knew you would say the Hobgoblin. I did know you would say the Hobgoblin. I thought about the Hobgoblin, but I never really came across the Hobgoblin, and he hasn't really lasted as well.
So the Hobgoblin was one of those books that was one of there were like 3 books that I got when I was really young. One was a cover with Will-o'-the-Wisp and a Spider Slayer on the cover. One was a Scorpion issue, and the other one was the second appearance of the Hobgoblin. And those 3 books were what really drove me in comics. And then I started reading, and I was reading monthly, going into the spinner racks and buying books. And I found a comic shop, and I'm buying the Hobgoblin issues as they're coming out, reading, because the big thing was, who's the Hobgoblin? And he was breaking into all of Norman's old hideouts and taking the Green Goblin stuff and twisting it over to Hobgoblin colors. And you're learning, he's reading the journals, and you're like, oh, he's going to find out that Peter Parker's Spider-Man and all this stuff's going to go on. And it just was building this cool story, and it culminated. And right after they got to the end of that, is about the time where Peter Parker asked Mary Jane to marry him. And then literally 7 months later, Eddie Brock, Venom, kidnaps Mary Jane. It just rolls right on through. So it's like Green Goblin, Hobgoblin, boom, Venom, all like just this easy rolling storyline that just, there's those 3, the Hobgoblin and Green Goblin were just this constant villain. It was like a continuation of the Norman Osborn legacy that's always in the background of that storyline. So
great stuff. Great stuff. I'm glad we did this, because you guys are obviously clearly very passionate about Spider-Man. But I think
let me say it really quick.
Hold up. Pull your mic.
Let me add this. Is that if I can't have Flash Thompson, I would take the Hobgoblin. You don't have to put the camera on. It's fine. I would take the Hobgoblin over Flash Thompson, just because he's, in my mind, a little less scaly and cheesy than the Green Goblin.
All right. Well, next week, Secret Invasion episode 3.
He's like a witch on an electric broom.
And I think the
Mysterio one. I struggle with that, but Craven.
I just don't like. I mean, to me, it's like the guy in leopard pants. I mean, I'm not really buying.
There's no camera on you right now.
It's fine.
Yeah, we had some technical glitches, guys. So you're not going to see Bowen's face ever again. Next week, episode 3. And then I think we should tackle Black Panther. Tackle him. We'll tackle the movie. Tackle the movie. All right. Thanks for...
I've heard of White Lion. Never heard of a Black Panther.
Like and subscribe.